number one, Ohio State's going on the road for the first time. Number three team in the country going on the road for the first time this year. Here it is, the second weekend in October, going to Michigan State. But you're looking at this Big Ten right now, and wow, I don't think you're impressed after you get past the first three or four teams, right?
I think it's very top heavy. You got some really good teams at the top, and we'll see how good they're going to start playing each other here in the next few weeks. And that's the Buckeyes, Wolverines, and Penn State. They kind of separated themselves. The ones that are alarming to me, traditionally extremely strong teams in Michigan State, they've kind of had a little bit of a low. I know they had a good year last year, won 11 games, but
yeah.
Michigan State now, just for a quick reminder, when Mark D'Antonio was there, and we were hired in 2012, they were top 5, top 10, all those draft picks on defense, number one defense in America. Le'Veon Bell was a tailback, and Cousins was a quarterback, and you're like, my gosh, I mean, as good a program as there really was, and well coached with Narduzzi running the defense. And then you had Wisconsin that had probably about a 15-year run where, regardless of who the coach was, it was obviously Alvarez, Bielema, Gary Anderson, and then Christ, and it was a cookie cutter, big, strong lineman, hard to defend, and then tough as nails defense. And then Iowa, always strong. Yeah. And their offense right now, defense is very good. What an environment, by the way. I think Iowa fans are as good as anybody in America. I mean, they're so supportive of that team. Obviously, we experienced it, that night game a few years ago. But those three teams are traditional top 15, top 17 teams. And you watch them on film and you don't recognize them. Iowa, once again, their defense is outstanding, but their offense is really struggling.
Yeah.
So, and then you got so a lot of teams like a Minnesota who looked really good, and then they got beat by Purdue. But I still think you're going to see some teams, teams at the beginning are much different than at the end of the year. But I'll tell you what, Tim, they better get better. I mean, right now, that's a concern for Ohio State. Ohio State's going on their first road trip to Michigan State, and Michigan State looks like a shell of themselves on videotape. With all the transfer, that for 2 years in a row now it's just been, and Mel Tucker hit it right last year, and then this year just doesn't look very good.
Yeah. And they've been they've been hurt pretty bad on the defensive side from an injury standpoint. They got 4 or 5 regulars there who are out too, which doesn't help you, right? And then Peyton Thorne, I mean, their quarterback is coming back. You thought, well, he's going to really tear it up, but the weapons around him really haven't been consistent, et cetera. So it is kind of hard to put your finger on what's going on there, right? But I want to ask you this, Urban. Paul Chryst got fired this week. I mean, he's the second.
What in the world was that?
Yeah. Well, basically, you look at Wisconsin. On the one hand, you go, what he's done there, over 70% winning percentage. But the flip side of it is the last 2 years, but especially, in the recruiting realm, they've been like 11th or 12th in the league on the ranking side of it. And, like you used to say at Ohio State, hey, if they're ranking people, I want to try to be number one. You know what I mean? No matter what it is, whether it's nebulous or not. But then, man, they look like you talk about a shell of themselves. They look like a facsimile thereof of Wisconsin teams in the past when they played Ohio State a couple of weeks ago. I mean, offensive line and purely in development stage, defense. Wow. I mean, now they're playing against one of the top 3 teams in the country there, but man, it just shows administrators and stuff now, they're not going to really wait a long time anymore, right? I mean, you look around the country, 4 or 5 guys have already been fired, and it's not even mid-season yet.
Yeah, this was Colorado and Carl Durrell and some of the other changes that you saw made. You understand when this one came across, the respect I have for Coach Chryst in Wisconsin. But I see the same thing. I even watch, because I love to get up on Sunday and just start watching these games because I don't get to watch them during the Saturday. And you're just like, my gosh. I mean, I believe he was coach of the year a couple of times.
Yeah.
I remember facing him at least twice in the Big Ten championship game. And I mean, you talk about just a rugged, tough, well-coached team. And then all of a sudden you see Paul Chryst fired, winning 70+% of his game. I believe he was 5-1 in bowl games.
Yeah.
Or 6-1 in bowl games. Was in the Rose Bowl just a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I've told people, of all the places to go play, not that I liked any of them because they're trying to win, but Wisconsin, the environment, the fan base. I actually love the student body. That's one of the, they have a lot of fun with the opposing team and that jump around and the environment there. I wonder where they go. I think they want to really try to give it to Leonard, the defense coordinator. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing, is that he's one of their own. He's a great football coach. They got to get that thing going again.
Yeah. But real quick, address this. I mean, because you've seen it around the country. If you let things slip for a couple of 3 years, it's hard to get it back, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult. Look at Nebraska. They've been scrambling to try to become that elite team again for 2 decades now, and it hasn't happened. But just address that, how tough it is to kind of rebuild when other teams, maybe like in Ohio State under you and now Ryan Day, it just keeps going up and up and up from a recruiting standpoint. What I mean? The carrot you're chasing there when you're these other teams, right?
Yeah, Ohio State's an enigma right now because they're the one program that really has not had a downturn. Going all the way back to Earl Bruce, to John Cooper, to Jim Tressel. We had the one bad year in 2011, but that, Luke Fickell was a coach, but, he was dealing with suspensions and just a mess. And then we had a nice run. Now Ryan Day's even elevated it with the recruiting and, my gosh, first rounders everywhere, especially the skill spots. You look at Alabama, USC, Florida, there's always been Ohio State's that one that just continues to get better. And then to answer your original question, I've never seen it. I've been involved almost 40 years in college football. I've never seen it like this, where if you lose momentum, there's a chance you're going to lose your job. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but no one's asking my opinion. But that's tough, man. I mean, to think Paul Chryst was fired at Wisconsin, that means everyone else just keep your head on a swivel if you start losing some momentum. And I think there's going to be some other ones here popping that it's like a disregard for money right now too. Have you noticed that, Tim?
Yes.
It's like $50 million, and you're like, okay, wait a minute. Is that a result of booster involvement? Or is that a result of television contracts, or both? It's just like a complete disregard for buyout. Yeah.
But the flip side of it is too, schools are putting money into the football programs like never before too, right? I mean, generating, et cetera. And, they're paying coaches big time salaries, and you can understand when you look at it from that aspect, the expectation level is through the roof. I mean, everybody wants to be Alabama. Everybody wants to be Ohio State. And they're building the facilities and stuff. But like I always said, man, if you come up with a super conference with 60 teams, boy, half of those teams are going to have losing records. I mean, that's not the way you really want to go in this thing. But
Tim, Joel Klatt said this on our conference call. He said, when you look at this Wisconsin thing, is this same type of decision Nebraska made several years ago when they fire a guy named Frank Solich and Bo Pelini, and the grass is greener, we can go. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, wait a minute. I'm sure Nebraska faithful would say if there's a way to get the Hall of Famer Frank Solich, obviously he's done coaching, but that was one of those, oops, why did we do that?
Yeah. Continuity is everything if you can maintain it, man. If you could, and like you said, but they obviously, Nebraska did that because the athletic director at the time wanted them to look more modern on offense, embrace the new realm. And he didn't see Frank Solich doing that, so he goes with a guy from the NFL who really kind of failed in the NFL, and boy, they've been on the rebuild ever since then.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.